Howdy all, it's Phil here from the next 72 hours. I'm out and about today in the garden having a play around with the MSR Whisperlite here. Now, I've owned this particular stove for coming up on 12 years, just my last year of high school. And last night I was watching a few YouTube videos about people using these stoves and cleaning them. And I realised that in the 12 years that I've had this, I have not once cleaned this stove ever. Never pulled it apart, never replaced anything, and have treated it pretty roughly. It's been around the world to certain places, and it still continues to perform like the day it was purchased. The only thing that I've ever had to replace is this bottle here, because I couldn't take it on the plane from New Zealand to Australia. But can't really speak highly enough about these stoves. I used this one after the Christchurch earthquake for around about 2 weeks when we had no power, and used that to purify, boil and purify water to make it drinkable. Had about 2 litres of fuel, and that got through the 2 weeks plus. So they really are very, very economical. They're very easy to use, and they burn a number of different fuels as well. So there's a lot of room for movement there, depending on where you're going around the world, to be able to find a fuel that this one here can use. So really just going to show you a quick video on how it works. Once it's all attached, simply pump it up around about 15 to 20 times to get the pressure in there. These used to be really, really dangerous. They certainly have been improved on in the years that they've been around, especially with the whole priming side here, because if you don't prime it long enough and then put the gas on full and let it rip, it has the potential to squirt the gas out in a long line and create quite the big fireball, and so they're quite dangerous. So what you really need to do is you turn the gas on ever so slightly, and a little bit of this fuel will pull down the bottom there where that wick is. You'll hear it come out there like that, and you'll see that fuel start to come out in that bottom cup there. You don't want to totally fill it up by any means, but you'll see there's some fuel at the bottom. I'm just going to take this little protection shield here and shield the actual bottle while we get this primed. You don't need to do that, but I'm going to. And you just really need to ignite that fuel at the bottom there. You see, whoops. And that's going to start burning and prime that top part of the stove there. So what it's really doing is heating that up so that you can turn the gas on full again, and it will be able to vaporize that gas and burn cleanly. If you weren't to do this, if you were to turn the gas on now, you just have a massive fireball, and it could be quite dangerous. So you really do need to wait for it to warm up enough to be primed. So once that's burnt down and almost gone, which should be warm enough to start that going. Like I said, I used this after the earthquake in Christchurch over in New Zealand, and there was no power where we lived for quite a long time, and also the water wasn't drinkable as it was, so it was quite I've actually put quite a bit of fuel in that bottom. That's probably a bit too much. I'll move it back here a bit. And so this really was amazing. It was a godsend really to have this, and last night I gave it a bit of a clean out after watching that YouTube video, and so I thought today I would test it out in the garden here and boil myself a cup of espresso using my little Stove Top Espresso here. Now, when these first came out, MSR put out a nice wee espresso ring, or little ring that would go on the top there, and is suitable for items that are smaller, because this is not really built to take the big smaller pots like this espresso here, but they no longer make them, and supposedly it was because they didn't sell enough of them, and the reason for that was because they were so darn expensive for what they were. So if anyone happens to have one lying around and or knows where to get their hands on one these days, I'd certainly be interested in finding out, because they really, with the smaller pots available these days in these espresso machines or espresso cookers, stovetops, it's pretty hard to balance them on there. But as you can see, it's roaring away there quite nicely. I'm just going to turn it down as much as possible. There's a very fine balance here between not going at all, and full blast. Very, very fine indeed. That's about as good as we're going to get for simmering. And we'll just take this. Put it on the top here, and we'll wait to have some nice brewed espresso. I really don't think there's any better way to start the day out in the mountains or in nature than a nice cup of hot espresso. It really gives you a pick-up for the day. This particular espresso came from a coffee company in Brisbane City called Romanti. They make some really fantastic coffee, all brewed and all roasted here in Australia, and they're very, very passionate about what they do. You can see that burning away quite nicely there, and we should be expecting, oh, very, very quick indeed. That was a matter of seconds really. A nice cup of hot coffee there. Ooh, take that off. That was fantastically quick. And we'll turn that off. You can see it'll take a few seconds to burn down. And there we have a gorgeous cup of hot espresso, which we're going to enjoy now. So that was just really a quick look at that MSR cooker, just so I get it out, give it a bit of a clean off, and have a bit of go, make sure it's still working nicely. And like I said, coming up 12 years old, still working like the day I bought it. So anyone that's interested in looking at a stove for survival purposes or emergency purposes, or just plain old getting out there into the nature, should really consider the MSR Whisperlite International stove, just because it burns so many different types of fuels. It's very, very economical. It puts out a lot of heat, and they're practically foolproof. I haven't looked after this at all as far as cleaning it goes in all that time, and it still just lights up every single time. So this is Phil from the next 72 hours, out and about with the MSR International Whisperlite and some delicious espresso coffee. Thanks.